Hey there, fellow travelers. If you think you've mastered the art of breezing through airport security, think again. The travel rules you thought you knew, they've quietly changed. And 2025 is shaping up to be a whole new ball game when it comes to TSA regulations. So buckle up, because today we're diving into the surprising and sometimes downright frustrating items that the TSA is flagging and confiscating this year. Trust me, you don't want to be caught off guard. Now let's start with the basics. You know the drill. Shoes off, laptop out, liquids in a clear bag, right? It's the same routine we've all been doing for years. But here's the catch. While the process might look familiar, the rules behind it have been rewritten. And the changes? They're catching even the most seasoned travelers by surprise. People are showing up at security thinking they've got it all figured out, only to find themselves stuck in line, watching TSA agents rummage through their bags. Why? Because the rules have shifted, and most of us didn't get the memo. One of the biggest reasons for this shakeup is the TSA's shiny new technology. They've rolled out some seriously advanced systems, like credential authentication technology, CAT, and computed tomography, CT baggage scanners. Sounds fancy, right? Well, these tools are game changers. CT scanners, for example, create 3D rotatable images of your bags. They can detect density, shape, and even the chemical makeup of items with incredible precision. That's great for security, but not so great for travelers who suddenly find their everyday items flagged as suspicious. Here's the thing. These scanners are so sensitive that they're picking up on details that older machines would have missed. And that means more items are being flagged, more bags are being opened, and more things are being confiscated. It's not just about catching the obvious us anymore. These machines are designed to spot anything that could even remotely resemble a threat. The result: longer security delays, more manual bag checks, and yes, the dreaded moment when you have to say goodbye to something you packed. Now let's talk about the consequences of these new rules. First off, missed flights. Yep, those extra bag checks can eat up precious time, and if you're cutting it close, you might find yourself sprinting to your gate, or worse, watching your plane take off without you. Then there's the financial hit. Imagine having an expensive item confiscated because it didn't meet the new guidelines. It's not just frustrating, it's costly. And let's not forget the emotional toll. Picture a child's favorite toy being taken away at security. It's heartbreaking, and it's happening more often than you'd think. But hey, this isn't about scaring you, it's about preparing you. Because the truth is, these changes can seriously disrupt your travel plans if you're not aware of them. So let's get into the specifics. What are the items that are now getting flagged or confiscated? And more importantly, how can you avoid the hassle? First up, powders. This one's catching a lot of people off guard. If you're carrying any powder-like substance over 12 ounces, it has to go in a separate bin for inspection. Why? Because those high-tech CT scanners can detect dense organic powders as potential explosives. And if your powder isn't in its original labeled packaging, you can pretty much guarantee it'll be pulled for testing. Protein powder, baby formula, coffee grounds, makeup compacts, flour pancake mix, spices, you name it. If TSA can't identify it quickly, it's getting confiscated. So here's the pro tip. If you're carrying powders, keep them under 12 ounces and in their original packaging. Better yet, put them in your checked luggage if you can. Next, let's talk about power banks and spare lithium batteries. These have been a hot topic for a while. But in 2025, the rules are stricter than ever. Lithium batteries are a big red flag because of the fire risk they pose. Here's what you need to know. All spare lithium batteries must be in your carry-on, not your checked luggage. Power banks over 100 watt-hours, you'll need airline approval. And anything over 160 watt-hours, banned entirely. The tricky part is that many power banks don't clearly list their watt-hours. If TSA can't verify the capacity, they'll confiscate it. So if your power bank is only labeled in MATO, do the math. MATO times volts divided by 1,000. And make sure it's clearly labeled to avoid any issue. Now let's move on to smart luggage. You know those fancy suitcases with built-in batteries? They're super convenient until they're not. If the built-in lithium battery can't be removed by hand, the entire suitcase is banned. This applies to both carry-on and checked luggage. Same fire risk as power banks. And here's the kicker. If a gate agent asks you to check your carry-on and the battery can't be removed instantly, you might have to leave the suitcase behind. So before you invest in smart luggage, make sure the battery is removable. It'll save you a lot of headaches. And here's one that might surprise you. Toys that resemble weapons. TSA is cracking down hard on these. We're talking toy guns, squirt guns, foam swords, Star Wars blasters, action figures with weapons, even toy lightsabers. Officially, lightsabers are allowed, but the final decision is up to the TSA officer. If it looks like it could be mistaken for a weapon, there's a good chance it'll be confiscated. So if you're traveling with kids, pack those toy weapons in your checked luggage. Trust me, it's not worth the risk. Finally, let's touch on carrying large amounts of cash. Domestically, there's no legal limit, but large sums can trigger TSA suspicion. They can't confiscate your money, but they can detain you and involve law enforcement. Internationally, it's a different story. If you're carrying more than $10,000, you have to declare it to Customs and Border Protection. And that's not just for individuals, it applies to the combined total for families or groups. If you fail to declare it, you could face seizure or even criminal charges. So if you're traveling with a lot of cash, bring documents showing the source and purpose of the funds. It's better to be safe than sorry. Alright, let's keep going. Now that we've covered powders, power banks, smart luggage, toy weapons, and large amounts of cash, let's dive into how you can actually avoid these headaches. Because let's face it, no one wants to be that person holding up the security line while TSA agents dig through their bag. So what can you do to make sure your travel experience is as smooth as possible? First and foremost, let's talk about packing. Packing smart is your best defense against unexpected confiscations. And the good news, TSA actually has a tool to help you out. It's called the What Can I Bring tool, and it's available on their website. This tool lets you search for specific items to see if they're allowed in carry-on or checked luggage. It's a lifesaver, especially if you're traveling with something unusual or you're just not sure about the rule. Now, when it comes to powders, the key is to keep them under 12 ounces if you're carrying them in your cabin bag. And if you absolutely need to bring a larger container, make sure it's in your checked luggage. Also, keep powders in their original labeled packaging whenever possible. This makes it easier for TSA to identify the substance, which means less hassle for you. And remember, unlabeled baggies of powder, that's a big no-no. It's almost guaranteed to get flagged. For power banks and spare lithium batteries, the rules are a bit more technical, but they're just as important. Always check the watt-hour rating on your power bank before you pack it. If it's over 100 watt-hours, you'll need airline approval. And if it's over 160 watt-hours, don't even bother bringing it, it's banned. If your power bank is only labeled in MEAP hours, take a moment to calculate the watt-hours. It's a simple formula, MEAP hour times volts divided by 1000. And make sure the label is clear and easy to read. If TSA can't verify the capacity, they'll confiscate it, and no one wants to lose a perfectly good power bank. Now let's revisit smart luggage. These high-tech suitcases are super convenient, but they come with a big caveat. The built-in battery must be removable by hand. If it's not, the suitcase is banned, end of story. This applies to both carry-on and checked luggage, so don't assume you can just check it and avoid the issue. And here's a pro tip. If you're asked to gate check your carry-on, make sure you can remove the battery quickly. Otherwise, you might have to leave your suitcase behind, and that's a headache no one needs. When it comes to toy weapons, the safest bet is to pack them in your checked luggage. Even if the toy is technically allowed, like a lightsaber, the final decision is up to the TSA officer. And let's be honest, if it looks even remotely like a weapon, it's probably not worth the risk. So save yourself the trouble, and keep those toy guns, foam swords, and action figures with weapons out of your carry-on. And for those of you traveling with large amounts of cash, here's what you need to know. Domestically, there's no legal limit on how much cash you can carry, but large sums can raise red flags. TSA can't confiscate your money, but they can detain you and involve law enforcement. Internationally, the rules are stricter. If you're carrying more than $10,000, you have to declare it to Customs and Border Protection. And that's not just for individuals. It applies to the combined total for families or group. If you fail to declare it, you could face serious consequences, including seizure or even criminal charges. So if you're traveling with a lot of cash, make sure you have documentation showing the source and purpose of the funds. It's always better to be prepared. Now here's something that might surprise you. Spreadable foods like peanut butter and cream cheese still follow the liquid rules. That means they're limited to 3-4 ounces if you're carrying them in your cabin bag. It's a small detail, but it's one that catches a lot of people off guard. So if you're planning to bring a jar of your favorite peanut butter as a snack, make sure it's a travel-sized jar, or better yet, pack it in your checked luggage. And here's a tip that might seem obvious but is worth repeating. Be respectful and cooperative with TSA officers. At the end of the day, even if an item is technically allowed, the final decision rests with the officer. If you're organized, polite, and willing to follow their instructions, you're less likely to face additional scrutiny. And let's be real, No one wants to start their trip with an argument at the security checkpoint. It's also worth noting that TSA rules are constantly evolving. What's allowed today might not be allowed tomorrow, so staying informed is crucial. Make it a habit to check for updates before you travel. Whether it's new technology, stricter enforcement, or changes to the list of prohibited items, being aware of the latest rules can save you a lot of time and stress. So what's the takeaway here? Travel in 2025 requires more awareness than ever before. It's not just about liquids anymore. Powders, batteries, luggage, toys, souvenirs, and even cash are all under stricter scrutiny. But with a little preparation and a lot of common sense, you can navigate these changes like a pro. Smart packing, staying informed, and being respectful can go a long way in preventing delays, emotional stress, and financial loss. And remember, the goal here isn't to scare you, it's to prepare you. The TSA's new rules and technology are designed to keep everyone safe, and while they might be inconvenient at times, they're ultimately for the greater good. So the next time you're packing for a trip, take a moment to double-check your bag. Make sure you're following the latest guidelines, and don't be afraid to ask questions if you're unsure about something. A little extra effort up front can save you a lot of hassle at the airport. Alright, let's keep this rolling. By now, you're probably starting to see just how much the travel landscape has changed in 2025, but don't worry, we're not done yet. There's still plenty to cover, and the more you know, the better prepared you'll be for your next trip. So let's dive back in and talk about some additional tips and insights to help you avoid those dreaded TSA confiscations. One of the most important things to keep in mind is that TSA officers have a lot of discretion. Even if an item is technically allowed, the final decision is always up to the officer inspecting your bag. This means that even if you've done everything right, checked the rules, packed carefully, and followed all the guidelines, there's still a chance that something in your bag could raise a red flag. And while this can be frustrating, it's important to remember that TSA officers are just doing their job. Their primary goal is to keep everyone safe, and sometimes that means erring on the side of caution. So what can you do to minimize the chances of your bag being flagged? For starters, organization is key. A well-organized bag is easier for TSA officers to inspect, which means they're less likely to dig through your belongings and more likely to let you pass through quickly. Ask packing cubes or clear bags to separate your items, and make sure anything that might raise suspicion like powders, electronics, or batteries is easy to access. The less time an officer has to spend searching your bag, the better. Another tip: be proactive. If you know you're carrying something that might raise questions, let the TSA officer know up front. For example, if you're traveling with a medical device, a large sum of cash, or an unusual item, mention it before your bag goes through the scan. This shows that you're being transparent and can help prevent misunderstandings. Plus, it gives the officer a chance to ask any questions they might have before they start searching your bag. Now let's talk about some of the more emotional aspects of these new rules. One of the hardest things for travelers to deal with is the confiscation of sentimental items. Whether it's a child's favorite toy, a souvenir from a special trip, or a gift for a loved one, losing something with emotional value can be heartbreaking. And unfortunately, it happens more often than you might think. TSA officers are trained to prioritize safety over sentimentality, which means that even the most cherished items can be confiscated if they're deemed a potential threat. So, how can you protect your sentimental items? The best approach is to pack them in your checked luggage whenever possible. Checked bags are subject to less scrutiny than carry-ons, which means there's a lower chance of your items being flagged. If you absolutely need to carry something sentimental in your cabin bag, make sure it complies with all TSA rules and is easy to identify. And if you're traveling with children, consider leaving their most treasured toys at home. It might be a tough sell, but it's better than risking a meltdown at the security checkpoint. Speaking of children, let's take a moment to talk about how these new rules are affecting families. Traveling with kids is already a challenge, and the stricter TSA regulations are adding another layer of complexity. From toy weapons to baby formula, there are so many potential pitfalls for parents to navigate. And let's not forget the emotional toll having a toy or snack confiscated can be incredibly upsetting for a child, especially if they don't understand why it's happening. If you're traveling with kids, preparation is your best friend. Start by explaining the rules to your children in a way they can understand. Let them know that some of their toys or snacks might need to stay at home, and reassure them that it's all part of keeping everyone safe. Pack extra snacks and toys in case something gets confiscated, and try to keep your carry-on as organized as possible. The more prepared you are, the smoother the process will be. Now let's shift gears and talk about international travel. If you're planning to fly internationally in 2025, there are a few additional things you'll need to keep in mind. For starters, the rules around carrying cash are much stricter when you're crossing borders. As we mentioned earlier, any amount over $10,000 must be declared to Customs and Border Protection. This includes the combined total for families or groups, so don't assume you can split the cash between multiple people to avoid the limit. If you fail to declare it, you could face serious consequences, including seizure or even criminal charges. Another thing to keep in mind is that TSA rules aren't the only ones you'll need to follow. Each country has its own set of regulations, and what's allowed in one place might be prohibited in another. For example, certain medications, foods, or souvenirs might be restricted in your destination country. Before you travel, take the time to research the rules for both your departure and arrival locations. This will help you avoid any surprises at customs and ensure a smoother journey. And while we're on the topic of international travel, let's not forget about duty-free items. If you're planning to shop at the airport, be mindful of the liquid rules. Even if you purchase something in a duty-free shop, it still needs to comply with TSA regulations if you're carrying it onto the plane. This means that large bottles of alcohol, perfume, or other liquids might need to be packed in your checked luggage if you have a connecting flight. To avoid any issues, ask the shop staff for guidance and keep your receipts handy. Alright, let's circle back to one of the most important points we've covered so far: staying informed. The travel landscape is constantly evolving, and the rules you follow today might not be the same tomorrow. That's why it's so important to stay up to date on the latest TSA regulations. Make it a habit to check the TSA website before you travel, and consider signing up for alerts or newsletters to stay in the loop. And if you're ever unsure about a specific item, don't hesitate to reach out to TSA directly. They're there to help, and it's always better to ask questions up front than to deal with a confiscation later. Finally, let's talk about mindset. Traveling in 2025 requires a different approach than it did in the past. It's not just about packing your bags and heading to the airport, it's about being proactive, prepared, and adaptable. Yes, the new rules can be frustrating, and yes, they might add some extra time and stress to your journey. But at the end of the day, they're designed to keep everyone safe. And with a little preparation and a positive attitude, you can navigate these changes with confidence. So as you get ready for your next trip, take a moment to reflect on what you've learned today. Think about how you can apply these tips to your own travel routine, and remember that a little extra effort up front can save you a lot of hassle at the airport. Whether it's double checking your bags, staying informed about the latest rules, or simply being respectful to TSA officers, every small step you take can make a big difference. All right, we're in the home stretch now. Let's wrap this up with some final thoughts and practical advice to make sure you're fully prepared for the new TSA rules in 20. By now, you've got a pretty good idea of what's changed, what's getting flagged, and how to avoid those dreaded confiscations. But before we close, let's tie everything together and leave you with a clear game plan for your next trip. First and foremost, let's talk about mindset one more time. Traveling in 2025 isn't just about getting from point A to point B, it's about being proactive, informed, and adaptable. The TSA's new rules and technology are designed to keep everyone safe, but they also mean that travelers need to be more prepared than ever before. So as you pack your bags and head to the airport, remember that a little extra effort up front can save you a lot of time, stress, and frustration later on. Now let's revisit some of the key items that are causing issues for travelers this year. Powders, for example, are a big one. If you're carrying any powder-like substance over 12 ounces, it needs to go in a separate bin for inspection. And if it's not in its original labeled packaging, there's a good chance it'll be flat. So whether it's protein powder, baby formula, coffee grounds, or pancake mix, make sure you're following the rules. Keep powders under 12 ounces in your carry-on, or better yet, pack them in your checked luggage. Next up, lithium batteries and power banks. These are some of the most common items to get flagged at security, and for good reason. They pose a serious fire risk. To avoid issues, make sure all spare lithium batteries are in your carry-on, not your checked luggage. Check the watt-hour rating on your power bank, and if it's over 100 watt-hours, get airline approval before you travel. And remember, anything over 160 watt-hours is banned entirely. If your power bank is only labeled in mAh power, take the time to calculate the watt-hours and make sure the label is clear and easy to read. And let's not forget about smart luggage. These high-tech suitcases are super convenient, but they come with a big caveat: the built-in battery must be removable by hand. If it's not, the suitcase is banned, end of story. This applies to both carry-on and checked luggage, so don't assume you can just check it and avoid the issue. And if you're asked to gate check your carry-on, make sure you can remove the battery quickly. Otherwise, you might have to leave your suitcase behind, and no one wants to deal with that. Toy weapons are another big one, especially for families traveling with kids. From toy guns to foam swords to Star Wars blasters, anything that resembles a weapon is likely to get flagged. Even toy lightsabers, which are technically allowed, can be confiscated at the discretion of the TSA officer. So if you're traveling with kids, pack those toy weapons in your checked luggage. It's not worth the risk of having them confiscated at security. And for those of you traveling with large amounts of cash, remember that the rules are different for domestic and international travel. Domestically, there's no legal limit on how much cash you can carry, but large sums can raise red flags. TSA can't confiscate your money, but they can detain you and involve law enforcement. Internationally, any amount over $10,000 must be declared to Customs and Border Protection. This includes the combined total for families or groups, so don't try to split the cash between multiple people to avoid the limit. If you fail to declare it, you could face serious consequences, including seizure or even criminal charges. Now let's talk about some general packing tips to help you avoid issues at security. First, use TSA's What Can I Bring tool before you travel. This handy resource lets you search for specific items to see if they're allowed in carry-on or checked luggage. It's a great way to double-check the rules and make sure you're not packing anything that could cause problems. Second, keep your bag organized. A well-organized bag is easier for TSA officers to inspect, which means they're less likely to dig through your belongings and more likely to let you pass through quickly. Use packing cubes or clear bags to separate your items and make sure anything that might raise suspicion, like powders, electronics, or batteries, is easy to access. Third, be respectful and cooperative with TSA officer. At the end of the day, even if an item is technically allowed, the final decision rests with the officer. If you're organized, polite, and willing to follow their instructions, you're less likely to face additional scrutiny. And let's be real, no one wants to start their trip with an argument at the security checkpoint. Finally, stay informed. The travel landscape is constantly evolving, and the rules you follow today might not be the same tomorrow. Make it a habit to check the TSA website before you travel and consider signing up for alerts or newsletters to stay in the loop. And if you're ever unsure about a specific item, don't hesitate to reach out to TSA directly. They're there to help, and it's always better to ask questions up front than to deal with a confiscation later. So what's the big takeaway here? Travel in 2025 requires more awareness than ever before. It's not just about liquids anymore. Powders, batteries, luggage, toys, souvenirs, and even cash are all under stricter scrutiny. But with a little preparation and a lot of common sense, you can navigate these changes like a pro. Smart packing, staying informed, and being respectful can go a long way in preventing delays, emotional stress, and financial loss. And remember, the goal here isn't to scare you, it's to prepare you. The TSA's new rules and technology are designed to keep everyone safe, and while they might be inconvenient at times, they're ultimately for the greater good. So the next time you're packing for a trip, take a moment to double-check your bag. Make sure you're following the latest guidelines, and don't be afraid to ask questions if you're unsure about something. A little extra effort up front can save you a lot of hassle at the airport. Alright, that's it for today's video. If you found this information helpful, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more travel tips and updates. And as always, safe travels, and I'll see you in the next one.